And as we continue to cover what matters to voters this election, the economy and inflation, we have more concerning news. The Producer Price Index released today shows a surge in wholesale prices, the highest in a year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is sparking concerns about inflationary pressures and the broader implications. Joining us now to shed light on these developments, David Stryzewski, CEO of Sound Planning Group. David, good to see you again. So today's PPI report shows wholesale prices rose more than expected in April, a sign of persistent inflation. So is this like a heads up for folks, David, that things might get a bit pricier in the near future? What does this mean for consumers and businesses?
Well, you've asked some great questions here. I'll just say this, we've been seeing a lot of inflation now trending in the wrong direction. And so this PPI report comes as the third consecutive increase. And so this is the producers index. And so ultimately, what does it cost for wholesale production of the goods and services and things that we use? And so that's a leading indicator for new inflation to be showing up in CPI as these, things are purchased and then they're put into practices. But we're looking right now at an inflation rate on this PPI. So what I like to do is I like to take the last 3 months of the month to month, and then I like to annualize it. And so if we do so, that gives us a 4% expectation on PPI. I mean, the Fed right now is so off on this 2% deal. They're literally losing this inflationary battle. And so what does this mean for consumers? I think ultimately this means batten down the hatches. This means it is not a time to be complacent here, because the thesis, or everything that's been priced to perfection in what the Federal Reserve has been talking about, and that they don't recognize where inflation is or where a stagnant economy is. I mean, Alicia, we can look at the ISM indicators and PMI indicators that came out last week. And for your viewers that don't know what those specifically mean, those are ultimately saying, hey, how is manufacturing and services going in the United States? And we know that when we see these dip into recessionary areas, which is below 50, that they generally speaking are, going to see a recession. Well, we're seeing literally both of these in a negative right now. And this is only the second time in the history that it's become negative like this. The first time was the dot-com. The second time was 2008 and the great financial crisis. And so here we are again. Is this time different? I doubt it. So with that being said, I think consumers need to buckle up. And ultimately get prepared for the next leg of inflation to be rising up as the year continues to persist.
Oh, man. With the producer prices going up, the cost, that'll get passed down to consumers as well. So this is kind of like a heads up that prices may be going up again. So there are concerns about the Federal Reserve potentially losing the battle against inflation, at least this year, right? And we know the Fed will not cut interest rates until they feel confident, at least, that inflation will reach their target of 2%. However, there still is suggestions of interest rate cuts, but to avert a banking crisis. So that's a theory we haven't heard much about. Explain that, and how do you see this playing out?
Sure. Well, so I think the Fed is stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's either they're going to see a banking crisis, or they're going to see inflation tick up in a way that is just going to fuel that fire. So as an example, if they do the thing that they're declaring that they're going to do, and we had priced for 6 or 7 at the start of this year, which I thought was total garbage, that's going to cause inflation to rise considerably, because people are going to start buying more. The banking crisis, though, that we're just beginning to see unfold again is as a result of when you raise interest rates, it has a negative effect on interest rate sensitive parts of our economy. And so banks are obviously one of those places, because they make money when they create new loans. But there's a lot of interest rate sensitive parts of our economy that are just in big trouble right now. And that's just going to be with our businesses. If you look at the statistics, 43% of small businesses last month were unable to pay their actual lease payments for their office space. And we're talking already with office space, picking up at kind of like record emptiness, 51% right now in New York. That's unbelievable. And so when we look at where this thing is trending, this is not a great moment. In fact, if you look at housing sales in 2023, do you know that they were actually lower than at any point in 2008 great financial crisis? That was just this last year. No one's talking about this right now. The consumer is in trouble. And so in the way that I look at this, I think 80% of the economy is ultimately in a recession right now. Why? Most of our expenses are food and energy and life. We're seeing credit cards up too high. But the top 20% that have assets in the market, hey, doing well. Market's at record highs. They've got great jobs. They're doing good. So the pain's not felt in the same way. And so I think that the middle class is greatly suffering. And I think that we are in a moment in history right now that is one that we're going to look back on and we're going to say, what was exactly going wrong? How did we have this so incorrect when we've got so many economists that are looking at this, so much data that's coming out? But the banking situation that we are seeing is so important for us to get right and to not have big issues in. But ultimately, I think it ends up in they're going to be doing a big bailout at some point. And that could lead to significant challenges here in the future. But ultimately, those local regional banks are the ones that, generally speaking, helps a teriyaki place to open up. And they, they work with small businesses. They invest in their communities where the big guys, don't want to do that deep of underwriting and go into that stuff. So this is a very tenuous time right now. And this report coming out just adds to the fuel that we already saw of the numbers are deteriorating. Inflation is going up, and of course, the print and spend politics is the direct culprit.
Yeah, as we try to figure this all out, looking beyond the domestic market, you've highlighted global economic slowdowns as well, challenges in key economies like Germany, Japan, China.
Yes.
How might these international factors exacerbate the economic landscape?
Well, we're all kind of tethered together, climbing this mountain. And so when one nation falls or economy has challenges, we all kind of have to buckle down or put our ice picks in this, and try to hold our ground for a little bit because we're such a global community. Now, the world is changing right now, and that is not a great thing, actually. The supply chain disruption that's happening, a lot of these things are a big deal. But, the United States being the world's reserve currency has been kind of a negative for most of the world. And so, yes, if we're looking at places like the UK right now, Germany, Japan, they're in recession. China is on the verge of some major issues. Their real estate market is probably past the point of no return. And that's the largest asset class in the world. So if there's a big hiccup there, guaranteed that's going to affect everybody, even here at home. It's just it ripples in different ways. And so as these things are getting, into our worldview and into the economy, I just think that we need to expect different outcomes and that things will not be as consistent or smooth as they have been in the past. So I would expect a lot more volatility and ups and downs. I'd expect a lot more, price inflation to occur in things like metals, copper. We're seeing, just kind of going red hot right now, including iron. But even things like uranium are going up tremendously as we're looking at alternative ways to be creating energy. Given all the demands with AI, at least with an EV, you're likely charging at home at night, and you can do that at off-grid hours and peak time frames. But the AI that's going to be taking even more and more energy has got to find alternatives. And so right now we don't have the alternatives that are going to fix this thing. But these economies are still suffering right now. And so with that being said, I expect that the second part of this year is probably going to finish different than the first part of this year. And I don't expect it to be as positive.
So much to talk about, David. We'll keep in touch. David Stryzewski, CEO of Sound Planning Group. Thank you again for your insight, as always.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.